When it comes to marketing, content is king. The guy who sits on the throne at Pinehurst Resort is a guy named Matt Gibson. He's next on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And welcome to Paradise in the Pines. We're joined today by Matt Gibson. He's the senior manager for digital content at Pinehurst Resort. Fancy name, but we love your accent. That's why you're on the show, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I feel sometimes I come on to a podcast or I start speaking about my job in Pinehurst, and then I open my mouth and people are, hang on, what's going on here? Why is there an English guy talking? So thanks for having me. It's an honor to be invited. Let's
pull back the curtain a little bit and go back a few years. I know I've been here 7 years with the CVB, and I come from a network TV background, journalism, my first career, and we always wanted to do video content. So we hired Dan, who's behind the camera here, as our destination storyteller, and Tom Pashley, who everybody knows is the president of Pinehurst Resort, on our board, was my board chairman at one time. He was like, wow, he saw the owned content. And obviously now these days, fast forward a few years, I mean, owned content is huge. And so I think Mr. Pashley had saw what we had done with Dan and the video content that we produce. And then you came along. And so talk about how you even made your way to the Pinehurst area to be the senior manager of digital content.
Yeah, I owe you guys a debt of gratitude.
I don't know about that.
Well, Tom has told me such story, and I'm aware that, Dan has done amazing work for you guys, and Tom is obviously incredibly intelligent, and Eric as well, in the world of content, and they see that things are changing. People are on their phones. Everyone's got one. Everyone's got a screen, and you can speak to people directly. These roles didn't exist 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it's amazing because of the phone and the way we live now, people do get to be creative for their livelihood, and I'm very, very lucky that I get to do it for Pinehurst. I was at, you said you were in news. I was at Golf Channel for a few years. I lived down in Orlando. I went to university in St. Andrews, and I'd always wanted to, had always wanted to be a Premier League soccer football, but I'll translate it for the audience. A commentator, an announcer. Huh. And so NBC had all the rights for the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I went, I've got this degree from St. Andrews. Let me see if I can get into NBC Sports. I got a job at Golf Channel. And I absolutely loved covering golf. It was amazing. I was very fortunate. And I will jump to sort of the end here. I was the first person to get hired for my role in Golf Channel. I was a traveling social media. They actually called it Predator at the time, producer, editor. Huh. And I think quite quickly went,
cool name.
I think they realized maybe we shouldn't introduce Matt as a predator. Yeah. It's a little bit sort of odd. But I was the first person, or that was a new role when I started at Golf Channel. And the exact same thing here at Pinehurst. The title was Digital Storyteller when I started. And people would ask me, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I asked them that exact same question. I asked Tom that question when I interviewed. I asked Eric that question when I interviewed. I asked Lindsay that question. And they all had different answers. And I think that says a lot about the trust that you put in Dan, that Tom puts in me, that you trust us to tell stories, and we have to be aware and cognizant of the stories and the peoples and the brand and various things and hats that one wears.
Well, and you talk about the brand. I mean, you have this canvas that you can paint digitally however you wish. It sounded like they kind of gave you free reign, maybe a little bit of rules. I'm sure Pinehurst has some restrictions on certain things when it comes to the brand. But talk about how you stepped into that role and how it was a big, broad canvas. And how did you guys come up with a plan, like, say, in your first year with Pinehurst?
For sure. I think they wanted to see whoever came in what they were going to make of it. Now, there's two parts to the canvas that I think about. There's the moving, constant evolution of these golf courses. Look at Pinehurst number 10, for example.
Yeah.
The photos that I take and the videos that I shot a year ago are completely different to if we were to go out right now and we're on number 10 and you speak to Tom Doak and Angela Moser, that's what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
What's the golf course going to look like in 50 years' time? Because it's a living, breathing thing that's constantly changing.
I've played it 3 times in a year and a couple months, and it's 3 totally different experiences, like you said.
For sure. And it's amazing. And so that evolves, and the places are constantly evolving. You know, I've been here for 4 years now. They've renovated the Carolina. They redid the Ryder Cup Lounge to be Carolina Vista. They've redone the hallway in the main clubhouse. They
Added the cottages recently.
They've done the cottages. They did sort of a deep sort of, I can't really speak to sort of the agronomy too much, but at number 8, they redid a lot of the greens there. They're redoing the greens at number 4 right now. That's in 4 years. So these places are constantly changing. So you have the physical space that is constantly evolving. I think what I realized very quickly being in Pinehurst, because look, I'll say this, I went in a little bit blind in as far as I'd worked for Golf Channel. I worked for the broadcaster. I worked for the PGA Tour. So I worked for the league. I had a friend who worked at Bay Hill. We worked at Golf Channel together. He went to Bay Hill. And I asked him, I said, how do you like working at a golf course? Do you miss the travel? What's it like? He said, no, he said, it's amazing. He said, you get to know the people. You see these people coming through. You see members, you see guests, you see people who are playing your golf course either for the first time or for the 100th time. And that's what I realized in Pinehurst, and any place, it's really the people, in my opinion, that make it. And so I realized very early on at Pinehurst, not that the place is not incredibly special, but the people who come through and the constant flow of people coming through is also a really large part of that story. And so one of the first video features I ever did was a guy named Ben Crow who played for UNCG. His father had worked at the resort, who very unfortunately had passed away. Ben and his mother came to play the Cradle, and he hit 2 golf balls, one for himself and one for his mother, and they would, whichever one was further away, he would play, and whichever one was closer, his mother would play, and that's how they played the match. I want to say it was either the day after or the day of his father's memorial service. And on the 9th hole, he put one in the jar, hole in one.
Wow.
And there are people standing there celebrating. And then someone goes, well, you got to put another ball down because, you know, you still got to play the match. So he puts another ball down, another hole in one.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And that's the kind of thing. And he had this incredibly eloquent speech, and I'm not going to get it exactly correct, but when we interviewed him, Ben said, you know, he played at UNCG. He's an incredible golfer. He's had a few hole-in-ones before, but he said that his father had never seen him have a hole-in-one in competitive play before, but he felt like his father saw those. And that's the kind of thing which is bigger than me, and that's bigger than Pinehurst, and it's something which I feel and I take very seriously. Not that I have an awesome job. It's very fun, but I treat those people's stories with, I don't want to say I take them very seriously, but I feel the responsibility to tell that story properly.
You know, everybody hears the saying, it's a beautiful day in Pinehurst. I think this part of your job is telling those stories. You know, talk about taking people deeper into like what that means, because it has meant something to somebody for 130 years that Pinehurst is a beautiful place, and it means so much to so many different people. How do you tell that story and have it resonate with all those different varieties of people?
Okay, I'm going to answer this in two thought buckets. The first bucket is when my brother and sister from London came to visit me. It was a day in November, and it was bright blue skies. And they just went, I think you forget that in London, it's always grey.
Right.
There's something about this place which is, the charm of it is incredible. You have these Carolina blue skies, and it's just awesome. It's so picturesque, and it's just an amazing place to live. That's the first. When I think you hear the word beautiful, it's an adjective which describes what you're seeing, right? So in my head, that's where my head initially went. But then the second bucket, or the second thought that I think is, I'm at the resort every day. My office is upstairs. Look, the sun isn't shining 365 days of the year. It rains. Tom Pashley has spoken a lot about how he doesn't want this to be a bucket list destination. He wants people to return
Come
here.
back, yeah.
And what I see is people who are coming groups of friends who are coming and they've spent money to be here in Pinehurst. They've spent their hard-earned cash to be here. And what they have are memories. They're with their friends. This is the best time of their life. They've left whatever issues they have at home. They've left thinking about paying their mortgage or whatever bill they've got to pay. It's them and their 3 buddies, them and their 7 buddies, them and there's 12 of them. And they're having just one of the best days of their life. And that to me is one of the coolest things. And it's something which isn't, I'm not going to say it's impossible to capture and show, but I'm trying to show that feeling. How do you show that feeling of this is something which, yes, does it cost money to come to Pinehurst? Of course, it costs money to go play golf anywhere. But I love reading the customer reviews and customer surveys where they say, this was the best time. This was awesome. This was a priceless memory. And that's really what I think when someone says it's a beautiful day in Pinehurst. It's beautiful because you're with people you love and you're doing something that you love to do. Someone asked me, what's the final round of, if you could play one final round of golf, who would you play with? They asked me if you could play one final round of golf, where would you play? And I said, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I just care about who I'm playing with. And I would like to play with, my father-in-law and my stepdad. And that's what I see at Pinehurst is these people playing with their best friends or fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives are playing golf together. And that to me is why it's always a beautiful day in Pinehurst.
Well said. And I think what I remember the first day the Cradle opened, you would see grandfathers with their sons and their grandsons playing. And then you see other people out there that might be a tensome or they're, playing barefoot. So you can come here and play the big boy golf course, but it's cool to go out when you go to the Cradle and see it's just a mix of people and their families enjoying that time, but sharing it with the game of golf.
100%. I shot a video years ago. It was a video for the Special Olympics, and golf, I think, was the first time golf had been a sport. And it was an interview with one of the sponsors, and someone had asked, why is it important for you guys to sponsor the Special Olympics, and specifically golf? And they said, the best thing about golf is everyone's just trying to do the same thing. If you play football or basketball, we'd be playing against each other. You're trying to stop me from doing the thing. In golf, you and I start in the same place, and we're both trying to get to the same place. Now, we're going to go separate ways. I can guarantee you're going to be in the middle of the fairway. I'm going to hit my high slice right. But I'll see you at the green, and both of our balls are going to go in the hole. And that's why it's such a beautiful sport, because it doesn't matter how you get there. Everyone will get there in the end. And to your point, you can stand on the first tee at Pinehurst number 2. You're trying to get the ball from the tee box into the hole. You're doing the exact same thing on the Cradle. It's just a completely different sort of type of golf. And Pinehurst has all of that, and it's amazing. I remember when I interviewed at Pinehurst, I'm now thinking that maybe this was a smart sort of ploy by the Pinehurst team, but it was like a April or May, and it was a Friday afternoon at 3:00. It must have been a high of 85 degrees. And I walked around the bush, and I walked up to the clock. And I'd never been to Pinehurst before. There's music playing on the Cradle. There were kids running around on Thistledew. And I was just going like, where am I? What is this place? I come from the UK. Golf is somewhat, I don't know if there's any place like that in the UK. And I just remember being taken aback.
Not even St. Andrews.
St. Andrews is different because, the Himalayas is an awesome... the Himalayas is amazing, and on Sunday you see people walking their dogs on the golf course.
I've taken my dog over to the Cradle. I don't think the members like that too much, so it's not quite the same as St. Andrews, but go ahead.
It's different. I've just never seen anything like that. I think maybe because Pinehurst has that concentrated area as well. In St. Andrews you have, the Himalayas are sort of kind of tucked away there. But still at that main clubhouse where people are going out and playing, you know, the Eden and the Jubilee and the old course is kind of wrapped around there. But you don't have that central thing where it just felt like everything was going on. You know, the Cradle was right there, Thistledew was right there. And there was music playing. You know, if you go to the Himalayas at St. Andrews, there's not sort of like, you know, Calvin Harris playing or something. So, and you see that happening a lot in America. And I think if I had to make a prediction, my guess is you might see an uptick of that in the UK.
What is in the 5 years you've been at Pinehurst, what is the thing that has made you just go, wow? The one thing that has just really struck you?
That's a great question. A lot of things sort of take me aback. I think it's the people, it's the guests, really. And I love speaking to our staff, and I love hearing.
I've seen some of the vignettes you've done with them. So when the trolley pulls up and they take the bags off and they encounter that gentleman. You did one recently, the pro inside the pro shop.
Yeah.
And so again, taking it back into a little slice of life with the staff who they genuinely care.
For sure. And I think that's the magic of it, is that there are just so many various wow moments. I'm not sure there's one specific moment where I've been like, wow, Pinehurst, because I think I have that small wow moment so consistent. Yeah, which is, I feel like, maybe speaking so much like I've drunk the Kool-Aid, but it happens so consistently that I'm not sure there's one specific moment. Now, that's not to say there are not tentpole moments like the US Open or Pinehurst.
I think the Kool-Aid are the transfusions at the Cradle Crossing, probably.
Yeah, I most certainly have had my fair share of those as well.
One thing, a project you worked on recently that we thought was really cool was you found some old digital cameras from like 25 years ago. And we're like, you know what? I wonder what's on these things. Tell that story. It was really cool.
Yeah, so Alex Hankey is he's the assistant head pro at number 9 now. He was at the main clubhouse. This was in 2024, so a year ago, sort of January 24. And Alex, before he was over at number 9, found these cameras. He was clearing out club storage because the US Open was coming and they needed, every inch available to do stuff for the USGA. And Alex sent me a text. He went, "We've got these old cameras. Do you want them?" I went, "Yeah, we'll take them." And there was a mix of stuff. There was old disposable cameras. There were digital cameras. And I sent the disposables away. I sent them up to a shop in Raleigh to get sort of processed and developed. And we got them back, and they were amazing. And we put a couple of them on our social media, namely because I was saying, "Hey, does anyone want these photos? If you were here..."
Or do you recognize somebody?
We had no idea where they were from.
Yeah.
We didn't know when they were from. There was a wrap on one of them. They were awesome. They were really cool. I'm someone who loves film photography. And I wanted these people to get these hard copies of these photos back, because to me, they went out, they bought a camera knowing, hey, I'm going to Pinehurst. I want these memories. And I guess they just never got them. And that's sort of part A of the story. I actually went on the local ABC News, and we did a little interview after that story, which was awesome. And that felt like the end of the story. So in there were a couple digital cameras, and I took out the SD card. And we actually had to buy a reader. I don't even know what type of card one of them had.
Technology didn't exist,
And so we put them in, and I dumped the cards just to make sure that the photos still existed and we can get access to them. I didn't go through the photos because that felt a little intrusive. And because they were digital, they had dates on. And so they were from, 2007. Well, one of the cameras had the lady's name and address on. So we went, I wasn't going to knock on her door, but, in another world, or if we were, not that I'm not a journalist, but, I could have just gone to her door, and that, again, felt a little intrusive. So I went, let's just reach out to her. We reached out to her in January, February time when we got the cameras. We never heard back from her. We sent her a message from the Pinehurst Resort Instagram account. We said, "Hey, Ellie, this is going to sound insane, but 20 years ago, you might have lost a camera." We didn't hear from her, so we just assumed whatever. And honestly, it was a busy year. Number 10 opened. We had the US Open. So I didn't give it much thought. And this digital camera was just sitting in my office. Well, then one day we get a message back from Ellie, and she goes, "Hey, sorry, I've just seen this. I'd love to meet you, and I would love to get the camera back." And so I messaged Ellie, and we set up a time to meet, and we interviewed her. And I'm a photographer, and one of the things that I do in sort of my spare time or as a hobby, or I think maybe the reason I like to do it, is I'm a sort of hoarder of memories, and I'm a hoarder of moments. And so I'm constantly taking photos, or I rarely leave the house without a camera, just in case something happens and I want to sort of cherish that moment. And I gave Ellie these photos, and she was very emotional, and she was so thankful, because there were these photos from 2007 that she was going through, and there were people in her life who had passed away, or there were these photos of her 2 grandchildren who she told me had just played number 2 the week before. And it was just an amazing moment. And that to me it's not the reason I do it, but that is something which just brings me, the utmost joy, and really is, it really reaffirms what I'm doing sometimes. And that was something that I never do, something that I want people to question the sort of level of altruism.
Yeah.
I don't want someone to view that as Pinehurst Resort's just doing that for the content. I genuinely just wanted Ellie to get those photos. Now, did we benefit? And had she said, "No, I don't want to do an interview," that's fine.
Totally.
Here's the camera.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy these photos. But she was so thankful, and she was so appreciative.
It was a great story.
Thank you.
Fast forward 20 years, and you mentioned the U.S. Open. What was it like covering that for the first time, U.S. Open, and been in Pinehurst in 10 years, from 2014 to 2024?
Yeah, it was amazing, because I feel when I started at Pinehurst, that's the thing that people are constantly thinking about, Especially I had just started after the anchor site announcement, so there was a lot of buzz around the US Open, and I started, I guess, 2021, and so I was 3 years out from it, and I was kind of going, yeah, that's sort of in the back burner, and then that approached, and then the build starts happening. I've been very fortunate. I've covered I've been to a lot of majors, but I've never done it from the point of view, I've done it when I was at the PGA Tour, and I've done it when I was at Golf Channel. I've never been on the other side, where I've been the club. I've been the people who care about, hey, how's the golf course being represented? So it was a slightly different shoe or hat that I was wearing. And the part B to this is there was a lot of pressure that I at least put on myself. We essentially have 1 week a year to really, 1 week every 5 years or 4 years, depending, to really knock the ball out of the park, so to speak, in terms of content.
Yeah.
And if we don't do it that week, it's not like when you were at the tour or when I was at Golf Channel, okay, you just go try again next week. It's like, hey, you're not getting it back until 2029. So there's certainly a semblance of pressure, but I loved it. I loved the pressure. It really sort of fueled me, and I think that week I probably slept about maybe 10 hours, but I was just running on fumes and adrenaline, and it was amazing.
And then you want to be at the right place at the right time.
100%. And because there's so much concern, well, not concern, at least in my head, I really wanted Pinehurst to have a great winner. I really, really wanted there to be a great story. And that's not to say, had Matthew Pavon won, it wouldn't have been a great story.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between, no disrespect to Matthew Pavon, but Bryson DeChambeau and Rory McIlroy.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I've actually still not watched the broadcast.
Huh.
I have it recorded, and everyone was saying, this is one of the great Sundays of championship golf. And it was. I haven't seen it on broadcast, but I just have this memory and these moments, and those are priceless to me. I was behind Luke Clanton, who on Sunday was playing in the same group as Neil Shipley.
I remember him playing in the North and South.
Yeah, he won. Yeah. And so we'd actually filmed with Luke on the Tuesday. We'd done a mic'd up. His caddy, Jason, local guy. That's how they met. They met at the North and South, and Jason's now on the bag for Luke on the PGA Tour.
Very cool.
And so I was following this Clanton Shipley group because they were both going for Low-Am. And on 18, Luke had missed his drive right. He did not have a shot. He was blocked out by the trees. I am directly behind this. I have a photo directly behind Luke. They're chatting about all the things. Luke, it felt like he was playing match play against Neil at that point. Keep in mind, I have followed Luke around that golf course countless times from when he played North and South. Mm-hmm. Luke hit maybe the best golf shot I've ever seen with my own two eyes.
Wow.
And walking up 18, he taking his hat off, he was waving it. The crowd is going crazy. And I've actually got goosebumps just like thinking about it. That was genuinely one of the coolest moments of my life, that I was holding these cameras, and these cameras, I was inside the ropes at a US Open for this moment. It was incredible. And so I
especially
think,
in that theater and the grandstands. I mean, it was, Pinehurst had never had anything like that at any US Open previous to that. So when you saw that with, 20,000, 30,000 people in that one area walking up that amphitheater.
and I'll say this about number 2 as well. There are a lot of golf courses, you go to Augusta, the roars from the crowd just create some level of intrigue. And so the fact that Rory and Bryson weren't in the same group, and 16 plays up, but then 17's right there, and then you have that amphitheater of 18. That is an amazing stretch of 3 golf holes just in terms of pure geography. They're 17 green is right there by 16.
You can see right up the fairway.
You can see it, you can hear it. And so I was
in the grandstand, you could see them on the green on 17.
It was unbelievable. And I imagine we'll have something similar, if not even bigger, in 2029. And it was amazing. And
where were you when Bryson hit the bunker shot?
I was off to the left. So my shot of Bryson's bunker shot is, sort of in his follow through. And then the winning moment I have from behind with the clubhouse.
A great picture.
And thank you very much. So you spend so long thinking, where are we going to get for that moment? We hired a couple photographers, and the guy's name was also Matt, who is an amazing, amazing photographer, a very good friend of mine. I was like, you go on the roof, you get the roof shot. That's the shot that we need, and I'll pick up anything sort of else on the ground.
And it was kind of panoramic shot, maybe, yeah.
And then so we had Matt on the roof, he got the roof shot. Leah on my team was I told her, hey, get in line. You're going in the grandstand. Yeah. And, getting in the grandstand on 18 on Sunday is somewhat difficult. So she got a wide shot at the grandstand, and then I was down at eye level. So we kind of sprayed it from 3 different angles.
Kind of cool that he came back the day after a disappointing Masters, which Rory won in grand fashion to secure the career Grand Slam. But I remember John Bodenheimer at that event talked about how Bryson came into the scoring tent, and he was like, I'll see you at Pinehurst tomorrow. So he could have very much said, I'm not going to do that after this Masters disappointment. But he came here the day after, and then putting that plaque in the ground with, about 500 members and fans that came out there that day was pretty cool.
It was amazing. And I think everyone in the room felt the same thing, which no one would have begrudged Bryson had he said, hey, guys, I'm not coming. Everyone would have been fine with that.
Yep.
We get it. You had a really not really disappointing, but you had a disappointing Sunday at Augusta, and that would have been fine. I actually asked him a question on that Monday. There's a famous story about Payne after he won in '99. He had been invited by his caddy Hicks to play in, I guess, some charity tournament, and Payne turned up on the Monday.
Yeah, in Greensboro. Yeah.
And so I asked Bryson. I went, there's the SMU tie, and that to me felt very spiritually similar. No one would have been upset if you had said, hey guys, I'm not doing the plaque. Thank you so much, it's a real honor. And it says so much about his character that not only did he turn up, he stayed for longer than anyone thought he was going to. Yeah. And he signed everything that people wanted. And it was a bit crazy. You had 500 people on the 18th green of number 2, and people still, kind of playing, and Bryson was corralling people, going, guys, you got to get off the green. And so it says a lot about him. He's just a regular guy who happens to be amazing at golf.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Kind of on the fun side, I've worked at resorts before, and typically when celebrities show up, you're pretty hush hush. But when Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce showed up, pretty much the entire town knew that they were here. So talk about, as I remember, I went there to hit some balls, and I was like, maybe I'll see him come off number 2. But they weren't coming in for a while, but there had to be 500 people back there. And I texted Mr. Patrick, and I said, hey, you got quite a few guests on the back veranda here. And so that was, where were you when all that happened?
I was actually playing golf that day. It's kind of a funny story, and I'm not sure how much Pinehurst, if I'm speaking with an official sort of capacity, but I'll offer my 2
we won't
cents
tell
here.
Anybody.
People as famous as Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, if they want to play a public golf course, they're probably aware that something like that might happen. I think it says a lot about Pinehurst. We didn't put anything out about it. We had been asked, hey, don't promote this, because if we post to our couple 100,000 followers, it's going to completely go insane. So I think it shows how much the town of Pinehurst, the sort of like whisper network of Pinehurst works, and a small spark of, hey, have you heard this thing might be happening, just completely exploded. So we didn't do anything with them. For us, they're 2 people who wanted to play Pinehurst number 2. So I was out playing golf, and I had a photo of them teeing off on 1, and I stood on the back on the member side, and I sort of picked them off on a big telephoto lens, and that was it. I didn't need to bother them. But I think that says a lot about Pinehurst, the golf town, and the golf IQ of people in Pinehurst. Everyone in Pinehurst loves golf.
No doubt. And even like if it's U.S. Kids Golf in the summertime, ask for volunteers, you got 2,000 volunteers. U.S. Open happens, you got 5,000. Whatever you need, this town embraces whatever level of golf it is.
Oh, 100%, which is why it makes sense for the USGA to be here, in as far as the turnout for these things when there's a women's am is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Because people in Pinehurst just love golf. I've shot North and South, and Jackson Van Paris, local kid who played at Vanderbilt.
Corn Ferry Tour now.
Yeah, professional golfer. It's, Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon, and there are hundreds of people out in their golf carts watching Jackson, because people in this town just love golf. And it's amazing. I love it. I was very fortunate to go to a golf club in Arkansas called the Alotian Club. It's an incredible golf course. It's private, and I shot a Palmer Cup there. I forget which year it was, but the golf course is one of the most incredible golf courses I've seen with my own 2 eyes. In my head, I went, I don't know if I'm probably never going to get back here. So I got myself a shirt, and I got a shirt for my wife. And so sometimes she'll walk around, and she has this shirt. She doesn't know or care, but she's not a golfer. She doesn't know or care about golf, and she doesn't know what the Alotian Club is. So she'll occasionally wear the shirt if I'm going out to play golf, and she'll walk with me, and she'll like make sure she's sort of dressed in the correct attire. And people on the street will go like, "You've been to the Alotian Club?" And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
You mentioned your team, because obviously you do a great job, but it takes a team of people to do what you do and build all the content you do. Talk about you got hired, and obviously other people have been hired in subsequent years. So talk about the team and how many people actually work on the content at the resort.
Yeah, so I'm part of the marketing team, and the marketing team at Pinehurst is obviously awesome, and I won't list every member on the team, but I have hired a woman named Leah who now reports to me. So there's 2 of us. And it's a small but nimble operation. And when I started, I was a little worried that there wasn't going to be enough for me to do. I was going, how much does Pinehurst really need? And then I've started, and
it's a never-ending beast.
There's 11 golf courses plus the Cradle, 4 hotels, all country club,
11 coming.
Stuff. And so when we took a lot of the creative in-house, it was a real snowball effect. People going, hey, we have an in-house photographer, we have an in-house videographer. Well, suddenly there were a lot of internal asks. Let's say HR are going, hey, can you come take photos of this event? I would go, sure, but then I also am trying to do the outward-facing things, and we were taking some of the creative away from the agency who were using at the time. And one of the great things about the team is the structure that Eric and Tom and Lindsay just trust me. And I said to them, hey, guys, we need to hire someone else to help with the day-to-day running and the content creation side, because as you guys know, doing this stuff and doing this stuff properly takes time.
Yeah.
To shoot number 10.
Yeah, just don't go out there at 10 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes you could be there at 7 a.m., 7:30 p.m., golden hour. You got to be out there countless times to get the shot.
100%. And I'm looking at the weather forecast and the clouds, and is it going